First things first, can you introduce yourself? Who are you? What's your role? And where do you work?
My name's Yasmin. I'm the COO at CloudBolt Software. I work remote, so I work out of my office in my house.
And what first brought you into the Kubernetes and cloud native ecosystem?
So I was at Puppet for a while, and someone reached out at a company called Stormforge, who was doing Kubernetes optimization. Kubernetes was always a space I wanted to get into, kind of transition from the traditional VM world, and it just happened to luck out that I liked the people and then wanted to learn more about the technology.
And this ecosystem moves very quickly. How do you stay up to date with all the changes that are happening?
Yeah, so I'm very lucky that we have a lot of engineers that are entrenched in the community, in the Kubernetes community. And so we have Slack channels internally where we bring in new, like, hey, Kubernetes launched this alpha feature, and then we chat about it internally. I follow I'm in the Kubernetes Slack channel, so any new updates that come out there. And then honestly, just events like KCDs, KubeCons, that's where I get a lot of my new updates from.
In terms of people in the ecosystem who have helped you level up along the way, is there anyone who you'd like to mention in particular?
Yeah, so when I first started at Stormforge about 3 years back, the way I got introduced to Kubernetes concepts was Justin Garrison's like containers on the couch shorts. The one with the HPA and the VPA and like hitting, I don't know if you've seen it, like hitting the bucket of water. It really helped. Being able to like visualize the concepts really helped me as I dug in deeper and learned more about like the technical side of the concepts. But people joke that like short form visual format is like taking over, and the reality is it did make the concepts a lot easier. And I actually one time at a KubeCon was at the same lunch table with him and like had a little bit of like starstruck. I was like, thank you. You taught me everything I know in Kubernetes, but that definitely helped a ton.
Yep. I actually was lucky enough to see Justin just yesterday at a conference. I'm in Amsterdam right now. I emceed the event yesterday, and he did his entire 40-minute talk with one slide, just telling a story. And he's an incredible communicator. Like you said, taking those complex concepts and making them much more digestible and not so scary. So yeah, massive shout out to Justin. And, Kubernetes can mean so many different things to different people. Yasmin, for you, what is Kubernetes?
I think Kubernetes is kind of just a little bit of like freedom to build as you need it, to break away from kind of the traditional licensing models that come, you hear all these horror stories with Broadcom. The thing I like about Kubernetes, one, it's open source, and two, it's really easy to deploy. It's not necessarily easy to manage once you get to scale, but it gives you that freedom to kind of break away from the traditional infrastructure, the traditional ways of kind of deploying things, and gives you scale at your fingertips.
And when you're looking at the people that you want to be working with or might possibly be working with, from a hiring perspective, because you lead, product teams, when you look at Kubernetes focused resumes, what are the things that you're looking for? What are the things that stand out?
Everybody obviously is like, when they're in an interview process, wants to prove all the technology they know, like how good they are with Kubernetes. But the thing that I focus on is more, how do they think about problems and how creative do they get? Because I think within the Kubernetes landscape, there's something for every problem and you can stitch together pieces. So it's less about how well do you know one piece of technology, but more how do you think creatively so you can bring all those pieces together. So even just like in interview processes, I like to ask people random questions and see how they would, like their thinking process in solving that problem versus like what the actual solution or answer they give me.
Okay. So more about the how and not necessarily, the end result. I think that's good. And, it's something that people often mention. There's a technical challenges around Kubernetes, but then there's also, the people challenges can actually be much bigger. And so, problem solving and building that into a team framework, I think that I definitely agree that can be very important. In terms of, balancing practical experience versus things like certifications, because certification is one pathway to gain knowledge, but every organization looks at them differently. How do you balance those two elements of practical experience versus certifications when evaluating candidates?
Yeah, for us, CK is definitely very important, especially because as we work with customers or prospects, that credibility that we have is important. So we want to make sure that when we say we know the stuff, like we actually know the stuff and we have proof behind it. For example, one of the new hires I just brought on is on his path to getting a CKA. And to me, it's less important like whether you have a CKA when you join. It's more, are you excited about getting one? Do you have the aptitude to be able to take that path? Because you're going to learn along the way. And I know very seasoned Kubernetes experts that failed their first CKA. So it's not about like, can you pass it on the first try, but do you understand the pieces to be able to get to the point of that certification specifically? It's the most relevant we've seen. You've spoken to Rafa Brito on our side before. He co-wrote a book with Chad on how to pass the CK. He's a ton of horror stories, but it's also nice to have people like that on staff that can help others as they are going to their license or their certification. Sorry, on certifications as a whole, I'm not a huge cert person, but I do think the CK is something that's pretty important in this space.
The CNCF will be very happy to hear that. No, but I think, like you said, it's a great way to know that someone's put the work in, that there's sort of a common framework, a common understanding of the different concepts that are covered in that certification. Now, looking ahead, we're talking about AI and ML constantly, but that included, but perhaps other profiles as well. What kind of Kubernetes related roles or skills do you see growing most in the next 3 to 5 years?
I mean, for sure, AI ML, definitely see that. So I guess I don't need to talk too much about that because everyone's talking about AI ML on Kubernetes these days. But the other one, and like, obviously I'm a little biased because I see more of this due to the nature of the company that I'm at, but FinOps Kubernetes engineers. So like Kubernetes engineers that handle the platform, do the day-to-day, but then are getting asked to provide insights into, okay, how much are we spending on this platform? How do we allocate this across the developers? Because Kubernetes has so many like shared costs, a lot of teams don't have a good way to do chargeback. So what the developers look at as like free, because they're not paying for it, is actually a charge that the business has. And because of the complexities of Kubernetes, it's not like a FinOps person and the finance team can't say, oh, this is how much everyone's spending. This is how we got to break out the cost. You need someone that really understands the technology and the platform. And so more and more, I'm talking to people that are like, their day-to-day is core platform engineering, but they're being asked to kind of put on a FinOps hat and give reports to the finance teams or help the developers understand, hey, when you like have this namespace, it's not just what you're the resources you're using in the namespace, but also Cube System, for example. Like, how does that shared cost get passed around? And how do you show them what they've requested for versus what they're actually using? And I hear that a lot where the platform engineer is like, yep, developers keep asking for more and more. And I like show them, hey, do you know you actually, if you just right size, you could use what you already have. That level of analysis and kind of walking people through, you have to have that background to be able to do it.
And it's interesting that you say, engineers that might be pivoting more towards this FinOps, position. What about people that are entering the Kubernetes world, in the opposite way, that maybe they're starting from another background, maybe they're, on the product side, or maybe they're on the finance side, and they want to get more into the Kubernetes world. What advice would you give to someone who's trying to make that transition?
Yeah, I'd say like it's hard. So I think part of the journey is knowing it's going to be a hard journey. And sometimes that just helps in itself because then you don't feel like, oh, I'm like constantly failing. It's like, no, this is just like, it's going to be an uphill battle and you continue to chip away at it. I think advice for people that are in non-engineering roles and trying to transition to Kubernetes, some of the basics and just like core infrastructure, like forget Kubernetes, but just like, how do you provision infrastructure, whether it's just basic EC2, it's like getting down the basics, then transitioning to Kubernetes so that you can understand the concepts. Like we do a lot of helping people understand what is the cloud, right? Like, when people say cloud, does that all mean? And then as you get the basics, then get deeper into, okay, now what are containers? What is Kubernetes? I wouldn't necessarily jump like 0 to 100 and go, okay, I'm in finance, I'm in fintech, I'm doing something completely different. I'm going to now like go get into Kubernetes. It's like, what is the bridge to get there?
And, another thing as well is that there's a debate out there around the difference between, vendor versus end user career paths and people trying to figure out, is it going to be building a product? Is it going to be working in a large institution that's heavily regulated, different things of that nature. What do you think people misunderstand the most about that divide of vendor versus end user pathways?
So I actually have been on both sides. I started out as an end user. I think it was like 2016-ish when I deployed my first Docker container. And at the time, my engineering manager was like, hey, you should go check out this thing, Docker. I don't remember if it's 2016 or 2015, but around then. And it was so early that like the site was down often. And that was maybe my first experience into the container world. And then now like fast forward over 10 years and you kind of look at it now and it's like, oh, wow, like we've come a long way. And for me, being an end user helped me understand like what is the mindset when you're looking at technology to solve a problem, like the whole build versus buy. When people are on the ground, what are the things they're thinking about? And for me, it was always, I don't want to manage this. So how can I do the things that are interesting to me that are moving my business forward, but like I don't want to necessarily deal with the cruft otherwise. And then being on the vendor side, it's kind of cool because you get to see that lens just across every industry. So I was in retail, like IT, e-commerce type stuff. And actually at the time I was a Puppet user. So it was really cool going from being an end user to actually the vendor that built the software. Now I was not a fan of Puppet when I was an end user because I just wanted to like go and like taking the time to actually, we had a lot of back and forth with the automation team. But then like transitioning and seeing like, okay, here's the benefit of this. Putting that work up front will help you on the day two. That career transition, I think helps people understand, like empathize with who's on the other end. And then often I hear people being like, oh, like at the end, at a large organization, especially in retail, like there's not a lot of innovation, which is not true at all. Like I was at Staples, we sold office supplies. Nobody really thinks about innovation, but the team internally built an entire platform on Go on the very early days. Like we hosted a Go meetup. Again, this is like 2016, 2017, around then. So early on, you don't really imagine like a retail company selling office supplies doing cool things within the Go community, but it is possible. And a lot of the end users are the ones that drive the innovation because then they push on the vendors to like do more to meet their needs. So it's a balance. I think there's good on both sides. I like the vendor side. I don't know if I would go back. But I did. I appreciate it. I think it helped a lot in at least my career journey.
Very good. Last thing, just as a bonus question, if there's anything the Kubernetes community could do better, what do you think it would be?
I don't know if I should say this, but just like a little bit more organization. I think it's hard having a community that's so like geographically dispersed. It's so dispersed on the different types of technologies in the community. Different folks have different initiatives. Like you have observability, you have more on the infrastructure side, provision. Like it's a lot of different concepts that it's all trying to move in the same direction. And you kind of see that come out through the events. And we've been doing a ton of CNCF events, Kubernetes events as we can. But like organization, I think would probably be the biggest area because we get like prospects will be like, hey, I'm curious about this Kubernetes feature. When is it coming out? And you don't know because something could be in alpha forever. Then it could switch to beta, and getting some of those insights early on because it's not like a vendor backed community. It's hard. It's just hard when you have a lot of people working on something to organize them. So, but other than that, like it's been great. And yeah, it's a great community to be a part of.